Welcome back to HSC AMA. I'm your host, Julia Nimchinsky, and today we've got an excellent event for you. Couldn't be more excited to feature Tamara McMillen, the Chief Customer Officer of CRO Connected and former operating partner and CRO for HG Capital. Tamara has successfully led companies ranging from startups to stable enterprises, including Fortune 500 companies. And today, Tamara will lead us in a 30-minute MA session. We've got more than 60 questions in store for you, Tamara, already. So yeah,
We'll have to be quick.
Let's be quick. Question one, I'll have to be like a brick wall. Just read the questions and
All right.
get your answers so people get their answers. Question one, how do you balance the efficiency of strong leadership with today's desire to have leaderless organizations? Leaderless seems less efficient and effective in most orgs larger than a startup, is it?
So there's a couple questions in there. I suppose it depends on how we define leaderless. I think it may not always get interpreted well, but probably what's intended is to drive that inclusivity, to make sure that we're including various voices in the conversation, that we're being thoughtful, that it's not brute force leadership, which is sort of top-down decision making, which maybe doesn't consider other perspectives, whether they're within your own organization or across the business. So I would agree that truly leaderless, meaning there's kind of no head steering the ship, would not be very efficient or effective. But I would like to think that that's not what we mean when we talk about leaderless, that we're talking about being more inclusive. And no one leader has all the answers. We got to continuously learn.
Question number two, where do you start first in building a GTM strategy?
Great question. I think I'm going to take maybe a little step back and say, I think the first question you always ask is why? Why do you want to do what it is you do? And why are you in the market? And from there, you have to answer that series of questions of what's the problem you solve? Who do you solve it for? How different is that than anybody else? And why is it of value? Because we can solve interesting problems, but they have to be of value. Once you've clarified that in your market opportunity and you harden that ICP, then your go-to-market strategy is about the execution of being able to answer your why. So it's which routes to market are we going to take? Where are we going to deliver it first? Is it a geography? Is it a vertical? Where do those ICPs sit? Where do we think we already have the right to win based on the product that we have today? And you need to execute that with an amazing operating model that aligns to your strategy across sales, marketing, and customer success.
Tamara, we kind of had this conversation behind the scenes in this one. I promise you I have to ask this question on the event. So yeah, recession, a lot of background, a lot of people are panicking and they're reacting super emotionally. And they're not only calling the economic times that we're in a recession, but a deep recession. And so the data speaks to quite a different reality. But I'm curious your thoughts on this. What are you seeing in the market? And what do we do?
Yeah. Well, I won't pretend to be an economist, so I'll be cautious on my recessionary comments. But I think it's fair to say that there are varying degrees of recessions depending on where you are, who you sell to, the industries that we're talking about, because some people are reaping great rewards and others are really, really struggling, somewhat like COVID, although I think the players on each side of that may be different. There are some reactions that we're seeing, whether we are in a recession or not, people are still buying. So the question becomes, what do you do about how you're priced, right? Everybody wants to still make a deal. Do I load up on the discounts and really, kind of pull people in? And I'm gonna have to hold fast to the you never sell on price to begin with. So I'm not really clear why that would necessarily be the right strategy. I think we often risk the value that we deliver, which has nothing to do with the price, when we use discounting as a strategy to win. I'm hoping we can compel customers more than that. And should you then find that right opportunity and you believe that there is a budgetary concession to be made in this particular instance because they know the value, then strategically you can make that choice, but we never lead with price in good times or bad.
Thank you. The next question is, what is your advice to CROs who are facing economic uncertainty but still trying to grow?
Yeah, I think this is where the discipline of the business comes in. So not just for the CRO, certainly, but um, first and foremost, I think the business has to be judicious about its decisions. Let's make sure we're being capital efficient, that we're spending in the right places, make every hire count, hire the right people, prepare and equip them to succeed in their jobs. It's certainly a big area of cost, but it's also for the CRO, make sure you really are clear on your sweet spot in the market, who your ideal customer is, and that you're really tracking to the personas that you need to sell to. Oftentimes we get a bit wide, especially when the pipeline's not looking so great. We try and pull others into the sales cycle, and they often aren't the successful stories. And even if we're lucky enough to close them, they don't tend to stay. So I say, narrow your focus, be clear on who you have the right to sell to and who wants to win with you. And that's where you're going to ride out the tide of economic uncertainty.
What are your thoughts on technology stacks C-levels should be cluing in on?
C-levels should be clued in on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting question. And I think it depends probably a little bit on your business and how big you are. But as far as clued in, I think it's not so much about the stack. So being included on the stack, I don't know if you're looking for the particular technologies in the stack. I think all of these tools that we use are about producing results. And so whether those are metrics that can tell us the effectiveness of those tools and the efficiencies that they're driving relative to the cost that they burden the organization with and the level of adoption that they have, I think C-level people need to be far more concerned that whatever tech stack we have in whichever area of the business, that it's serving the purpose that the organization needs. We can't fix many of our problems with tools and technologies, but with great tools and technologies, we can drive our businesses forward. And I think that's at the top where people need to be focused on.
What was the hardest moment in your career?
Mm. Well, there have been a few. I think early in my career, they were some of the painful lessons you learn by selling poorly, disappointing customers. But hard ones were things like being made redundant. That's hard, right? Because it's not usually what anybody wants, but it's a reality, particularly in technology businesses, that happens. I think those can be hard moments. It's hard moments also having to let people go, good people that you would like to stay in the organization that you just don't have the opportunity to keep for one reason or another. And I think it's also quite hard working with leaders that you are challenged by, not because of their brilliance, but perhaps they're not necessarily the easiest people to work with, and you still have a job to get done. I once had a situation where, I was put in a difficult position that wasn't really right. And I could have allowed that to affect how I treated the people that I was responsible for, but it wasn't fair to them. Those are hard, right? But for me, that's just kind of about having integrity. You got to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And that's it for me. So yeah, there've been some hard times, but they make you stronger. And if it wasn't for hard times, you wouldn't know how good the good times are.
How do you develop leadership skills, Tamara?
How do I develop them?
Yep,
How did I develop them, or how does one?
both.
um, for me, it's about learning, and that's not as much academic as it probably is from life, from interacting with others. I think to lead, you need to know how to follow. I think you need to be willing to learn, and you need to care about others probably a little bit more than yourself, in the sense that if I succeed, that's really great, but if the people that I'm responsible, that I have a duty to lead, are not succeeding, then for me, I would consider that not succeeding and not leading well. So those are some of the ways that I learn and that I lead, and I think that life is a great teacher, and you can learn from everything.
I just have to ask you this question. I'm seeing it a lot on LinkedIn and everywhere. Um, and here's your thoughts on this. CEOs and sales. Should CEOs be sellers? Should CEOs own sales? Should CEOs double down on sales, focus on sales, or should they hire excellent and brilliant CROs and learn to lead the vision of the company overall?
I love the easy questions. So I think everyone in the company is a salesperson, first and foremost. We're all representatives of our brands, our brands' values, and the products that we serve. And the CEO would not be any different than that. I certainly think the CEO's role evolves at a strategic level the larger the organization gets, whether you're privately funded or publicly traded. The American term, the buck stops here. You could still say that, but then you also have they are ultimately responsible and they answer to a board. But certainly if you're running a company of 50 people as a CEO, you're probably doing a lot more selling than if you're running a company of 50,000. And yes, you would still be selling and representing, but obviously you're going to be far more pulled into the more strategic conversations about how the business is more broadly going to grow. So I hope that answers your question. And I think to that end, I'm just going to go back to my leadership one and learning. Look, I think the books and the podcasts and all that stuff are really great, but I definitely find all of the colleagues and people like you, Julia, that I've met, the people that are on here watching that ask the questions, I think that's the way to learn, is to engage with others, because everybody's got something to teach you.
What are the new KPIs for GTM?
New KPIs. I don't know. I'm hoping someone will tell me. I think there are some that are getting more emphasis. I think upsell and cross-sell is big right now because it is seemingly harder to win those new customers. I think there's a lot of focus on those metrics beyond have we upsold and cross-sold, but like what's the frequency of purchase, and comparing sales cycle times of upselling and cross-selling to if we're winning new accounts. I think it's things deeper in there, looking more broadly at operational data. Those are the areas where I think I wouldn't call them new. I think that the focus is shifting because we realize that there are a lot of secrets sitting in our data that we've not necessarily been looking at. And if we start looking at those, they'll be leading indicators of success.
A lot of questions about the focus of CXOs in Q1 2024. People are feeling that you almost know the secrets. I feel that a lot of sellers are trying to figure out, what's going on. So the question is, what's top of mind for CXOs going into Q1 2024?
I think there's still there's two things. One, everybody wants it to be a better year than 23, but well, pretty much everybody. Those of you who are not in that bucket, just keep rocking on. But I think a lot of folks are optimistic and hopeful. I think there's still some uncertainty. That being said, I think they're going to go into the year with more clarity than we had this year. I think, it's easier to rise when you're starting from a lower point. And I think for many people, this is a lower point. So I don't know that we're going to shift a lot. I think we're going to increase our focus on the things that we have learned are working. And as far as being a sales rep, I think you just keep doing the things that that work. Listen to your customer, focus on their outcomes, deliver the value that they're expecting, be a great collaborator internally to get stuff over the line on time.
What is the secret to hiring A players?
The secret to hiring A players. There are a lot of answers to this question. I don't always think past performance is a predictor of future performance. I certainly think it's an indicator, and salespeople in particular are great at selling stories about their successes, but it's really hard to have the context. So of course, if you're a great salesperson who rocks their numbers, that's great, but I don't know what your target was. So what I look for is a growth mindset, first and foremost. Is this somebody that's hungry and eager to learn? a self-starter, someone that is willing to take initiative and doesn't need constant direction, someone who's flexible, agile, and adaptable. Things change all the time. We have to course correct. Are they comfortable working in an environment where we don't have all the answers? I'm looking for someone who believes that winning is when you work as a team. Sales is individual recognition, but it's still a team sport. So how good are they at working across the aisle? Are they the victim in the sale, or are they one of the players that's going to help the customer win with us?
Tamara, what's your favorite sales methodology? I'm asking because I know your relentless focus on customer success and the holistic view you kind of, always take when it comes to revenue teams, sales teams.
Yeah,
It's really rare. So I'm curious. I can't imagine you're a challenger kind of person, but correct
I
me
am
if
a
I'm wrong.
challenger. No, that's not true. I am a challenger. I mean, I think we do need to bring challenge to those conversations, but we had a conversation about this, I think, Julia, that challenger is not really a sales methodology as much as an approach. But um, I think any sales methodology, it's like a diet, right? Most diets will work if you'll follow them, and there's different ones that you can pick. The key for most sales methodologies is to make sure that they're implemented from the top down, and that you're not just asking a bunch of people to follow a process that you're not measuring and counting and following up on to help them develop and perfect it. The other thing I'll say about sales methodologies, which is not answering your question about my favorite one, because I really don't have one, and I think you need to pick one and work with it, but they often only work on the top of the funnel, and I think we need to focus a lot more on the middle of the funnel, because getting qualified leads in is really great, and then qualifying those customers to make sure it's the right time, when it's in the budget, the need, the stakeholders, that's great, but it's really how you move the customer through the value chain of buying that I think we need a lot more focus on. I see too much loss in the middle of the funnel, actually, and that's a shame. When we got them in the top, and that was probably the hardest part.
Why do you think there are no mid-funnel coaches really? Because our industry is so saturated with top of the funnel closing, but there's not much focus on the middle.
Well, I'll tell you what I think the answer is, which I don't buy, but well, we're all different. Like the top of the funnel, that's about like qualifying leads and getting them in and understanding, but like in the middle, it's different. Like they do POCs, we don't do POC. We're a SaaS business, we're not a SaaS business. I think it feels very personal. Um, and that's probably one of the reasons. But uh, back when I started, I think there was a lot more focus on strategic account selling and strategic selling, and being a little bit more in depth about the research, and there was a little bit more onus on the rep. Now reps have huge expectations today, not to mention all the tools and the admin, but I think that in the sassification of everything, which I love, we've lost a little bit, and I think there was a little bit more focus on mid funnel in the past. So maybe that's our next opportunity, Julia.
Let's do it. You should see. The next question is, how do you increase NRR? I love the questions.
Well, we have to know what NRR is first and foremost, right? So make sure that we are clear on that. I mean, NRR is a function of making sure that you're keeping the revenue you have, and that you're achieving also your top line growth numbers, and that the balance of those things will bring you greater growth. But churn is usually where we focus on NRR, which I certainly think is logical. And the way that we attack that component of the problem is by, here I go, delivering those customer outcomes that they want. My ultimate customer success, that true end-to-end customer success, is that people are really extracting value on a continuum from doing business with us, and that creates new opportunities to sell them more things. And so when we win them well, and that creates the stories that allow us to go out and win more new customers. And when we've won them well, then we have earned the right to keep them and sell them more stuff, and that will cure your NRR problem. It's really simple. That can break down into a lot of areas, like maybe your product roadmap's not doing what it needs to do, maybe your support isn't where it needs to be, but at its simplest level, it's about creating happy customers and keeping them, and then going after the right customers in the first place, because when you win the right ones, they tend to stay.
How often should a CEO meet with their CFO?
Wow. Okay. I love that. Thank you so much for thinking I have like all these answers. I mean, these are definitely going to be more on the opinion side. As often as is necessary to get the job done successfully.
Um, what are your thoughts on PLG, overinflated concept or wave of the future?
Mm. It feels late to be wave of the future in the sense that, it's been out there for a while. And I definitely don't think that it's past. I believe it has really shown us that consumers, customers, B2B, they have evolved. They enjoy being able to do things for themselves, at least to a certain point. And I think what we'll continue to see is organizations that never had a product-led growth motion trying to adopt them, and whether or not they can do that is where some of the challenge lies. In the exact same vein as those companies that are, product-led growth, often they hadn't developed their products to go up market, and so they hit this constraint point, and what they need to do is develop a hybrid approach if they want to go after and win those bigger ticket customers and really accelerate their revenue growth.
Um, with the wave of funding for Jasper, Writer, Reggie, should GTM leaders, marketers, and sellers even know how to write when you can just click a button?
I'm going to ask you to repeat that question one more time.
Sure.
Lost tracking on that one.
With the wave of funding for Jasper, Writer,
Oh,
Reggie, should GTM leaders, marketers, and sellers even know how to write when you can just click a button?
yeah. Well, I think that writing and reading go really well together. So I think whether you're clicking a button, you still have to know what you're reading, and you need to be able to contextualize it. And absolutely, we probably need to know how to write and use language far more than ever, because one of the greatest pieces of advice I ever received was, you only get the answer to the question that you ask. So if you're not getting the answer that you think you want or that you should be getting, you might have to adjust how you ask the question. So if we don't know how to write, if we can't really formulate and articulate our thoughts in a way that we're able to extract the right information, then the machines will win.
Beautiful. Is it smart to take VC money right now? Look at a lot of founders are reaching out to you.
Is it smart to take VC money? I mean, I think if it's a good deal, right? Like when I get asked about when people talk about getting funding, like I'm not the expert, but one of the things that I know for sure is you always want to know what kind of money you want. So there's money in the market, there's money for really good businesses, there's multiple questions and all of that. But in addition to money, what else are you looking for? Are you looking for deep industry expertise in the area you're looking to go into? Are you looking for geographic or vertical expertise? Are you looking for people that work with operating partners and others who can bring something to the table? Or do you just want to check? And what are you willing to trade for it? Because asking for money is giving up a form of control, and you have to have a level of comfort with what that looks like and how much you're willing to give. So should you take it? I think it depends if you think it's a good deal and if it meets your criteria. But like in life, I think desperation is usually what will crush most great things. So if it doesn't feel right, I think like anyone would say, patience will serve you well. If you've got a great business that you're building, be as opportunistic for yourself as the person who wants to invest in your businesses.
Who are the top 5 leaders in GTM you follow?
No, now I'm stumped. I don't know who to say because I'm going to alienate a bunch of people. So I'm going to say anybody that's been on the Hard Skills Exchange and the people that play the CXO games for sure. Mr. Michaels. Look, I think there's a lot of them. And to be honest, if I'm really honest, I love all the highlight people and they get a lot of accolades, but there are a lot of people who are never flashed about on LinkedIn that I follow and that I trust. And that might feel like a cop-out answer, but I think the best GTM leaders are those who you know, who you respect, and who you think are really successful. I worked with a woman back when I first started in my career. She is never on LinkedIn, and she's still to this day one of the most successful commercial leaders ever. And I would respect and follow and listen to her anytime before most of the people who've written fabulous books that I've read. So that's going to be my answer.
What is the impact of AI on GTM?
What is the impact? I think it can definitely drive more efficiency and effectiveness, but it's got to be used in the right way. It is just another tool, so it can cause as many problems as blessings. So, but it can really, if you can do that writing we were talking about and stuff like that, like I think it can help take masses of information and with us instructing it, really help accelerate how we ingest information and make decisions. And whether that's our go-to-market strategy or a variety of other things, that's really where I see that it can be quite useful. Help us be razor sharp as well.
Have you found OKRs to be effective, and did you use a platform to roll it out?
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm not an OKR fan. I've used them several times. I'll be honest. I'm not saying they can't work. It's not really been my experience. Neither time did we really use a platform. Largely managed in things like Excel. Uh, so yeah, no, it's not that they can't work, but I think it just depends on how they're executed. And in my experience, they can often end up being a lot of time suck and not get what they're intending to do done. So there's different ways to go about it. And I think, if it works for you, I'd say keep going.
How do you go about it?
How do
I
I go
have to
about
ask
what?
us about,
Setting
yeah, goals.
OKRs?
Yep.
Kind of old fashioned. I mean, I think early on in my career, it was always about just your basic goal setting, right? Like, what are the plans? What are the things that are the top 3 things you need to do next year? It's basically an OKR approach. You break that down into quarters, and then you break down the things that have to happen in that quarter and the actions and who owns them. I think that difference is when you put it into this broader methodology across a lot of functional groups in a business, they get pretty diluted in order to keep it succinct. And I think that's where sometimes it's hard to boil everything down to a pithy 10-word sentence, and that doesn't have a metric in it, because also we want to measure everything, and there are a lot of rules around that. So the way that I do it is I think aligning, first of all, is really important. So the one thing that OKRs do is it does help everyone be on the same page and make sure that there's linkages. So when we were talking about the go-to-market strategy, it has to align sales, marketing, product, and customer success. If we're going to market in certain verticals and industries, and we don't have the right compliance in our product, or we don't have the right features and functions that group's going to sell, and they're not even on the roadmap, then how is sales going to meet their target? And if we at the same time don't include the things that our existing customers have been asking for, how are we going to keep them and prevent churn? So, I think the OKRs or something like that is about creating alignment and agreement, so that when new stuff flies in from the left, which it will, that we can sit around the table together as grown-ups and compare it to what we already said that we would do and the priorities we have, and collectively decide, is it in or is it out? And that way it's also hopefully less hurt feelings. It's a bit pragmatic, but I think it works.
I want to be respectful of your time. We have 2 minutes.
Okay.
Just wrapping up. Here's a nice one. What are the top trends for GTM for 2024?
The top trends for GTM for 2024. Well, I haven't read the official documents because there's probably a few out there, but the ones that are still there, upsell and cross-sell is still a big one. Now, not everybody has that opportunity to do certainly cross-selling. We may be a little bit more limited in our product set, but it's the philosophy of making sure that you're maximizing your share of wallet with your existing customers, and that you're maintaining the customers that you have. So there is a renewed focus on customer success. There's also GTM leaders are definitely thinking about how do we invest in customer success. We're getting that that's important, but it's expensive. So there's more thinking on how do you make it more of a profit center? Can you tier your customer success support, wrap it into your ARR perhaps, and let customers sort of opt into the level of support and engagement that they need. And then I think everyone's thinking about like, what's our ESG response? And I know that might feel a little like, really, are there GTM? Are we thinking about that with our strategy? But more and more bids and engagements with customers are asking that question. And I think there's a lot of GTM leaders who are unclear what the response of their business is in a way that's sufficient to satisfy their prospects and customers' inquiries.
If you could do your career over, what would you change?
What would I change? Well, if I was staying in this career, what would I change? I don't know if I would, you know what I would do? I would have started networking earlier. I've been doing this for 25 years, and I think when I started, networking felt quite cheesy. And I'm from the US, we love to use that word. And it felt a bit usury, like you're really going there to get and not give. I think networking has changed. And I also think that once I decided to give it a try, my comfort zone was going in to see if I could either contribute or maybe just meet one or two people. And I have found it to be one of the greatest ways that I've learned and developed, both as a person, as a business person, and as a leader. It gives me great satisfaction to be able to try and help someone else. And I am constantly, and I intentionally use this word, like I'm blessed by how much people help me. Like it's really, really amazing. So I would have definitely done that sooner and gotten outside of my company, because we get too insular and we stay in our business. And although we change jobs more often than we did in the past, a lot of us still stay in our company because maybe they're good to us. And that's great. I'm not telling you have to leave, but you need to keep a foot outside and meet people and understand how they're solving problems. It'll help you be a better innovator. It also helps you validate that the things that you're doing are good or right or in the right direction. So yeah, that was what I would do differently. Do that sooner.
Beautiful. Last question. What people are you most excited to coach on HSC?
I am excited to coach somebody that wants to up their game, take it to the next level. The person who's probably doing it all really great, but they want to see if there's another way to think. I certainly do love helping organizations and individuals maximize their relationships with their customers and keep them as long as possible. And that involves lots of different things, from account planning and strategy and winning customers to how we work with product and embed the voice of the customer. So any of those problems you're looking to solve, I'd be happy to have a chat. And maybe then I'll have my top GTM leader names for you at the top of my head.
Thank you so much, Tamara. Excellent event. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and go coach with Tamara while you can. And your wallet will thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
See you again and again. Hype Cycle, HSC, always happy to feature you.
I look forward to it. Thank you.
I didn't hit all the questions, but I mean, we have to do like a 2-hour event to just address all of them. So
that was amazing. Those are great questions. And it's so funny. I'm not very good at keeping names top of mind. It's like when someone asks me about a book, it's the same thing. I'm like, I don't know. Like I will, as soon as I'm stopped talking to you, 10 things will come to mind. So yeah, it's one of my weaknesses, I'd say. One of my gaps is keeping under the moment, keeping all that top of mind. But there's so many great ones out there.
thank you so much, Tamara.
You bet.